Welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you've been following the headlines this week, that's February 2nd through the 9th, 2026, you might think the big news is, the OpenAI is finally running ads.
Which is big news, for sure.
It is, and we're definitely going to talk about it. But if you actually look at the research papers that dropped this week, the real story is much, much bigger. We aren't just talking about chatbots anymore.
No.
We're looking at the fundamental infrastructure for autonomous work.
That is the key distinction, right? For a long time, we've been in what I call the chatbot era. You type a prompt, you get a text response, it's passive.
Right.
This week, with the release of GPT-5.3-Codex and the new Frontier platform, I think we've officially entered the agent era. We're seeing models that don't just talk, they act. And maybe most unsettlingly, they're starting to fix themselves.
That was the detail in the research that really stuck with me. We have a model that was used to debug its own training data. It just feels like we've crossed a specific threshold there.
We have. It's a recursive loop. But before we get too existential, we have a stacked week to get through. We have the new coding flagship model. We have a Spark variant that's hitting token speeds I didn't think were possible yet.
Not even close.
And on the business side, a massive $200 million deal with Snowflake and a deployment to the Pentagon.
And, of course, the ads. But let's start with the technology. Segment A, the research. The headliner is GPT-5.3-Codex, released on February 5th. Now the Codex branding is back. What makes this so different from the GPT 5.2 model we were using last month?
Think of it as a hybrid. They've taken the general reasoning engine of GPT 5.2, which is great at, logic and philosophy, and they've fused it with these highly specialized coding stacks.
Okay.
But the wow factor isn't just the architecture, it's the training methodology. As you mentioned, early versions of this model were deployed to clean up and debug the beta set that the final model was trained on.
So wait, the AI is essentially curating its own curriculum. It's looking at the data, spotting errors, and fixing them before it even learns from them.
Exactly. It's self-healing AI.
Yeah.
And the results are showing up in the benchmarks in a way we just haven't seen before. The big one everyone watches is SWE-Bench Pro.
Right. And for our listeners who don't spend their weekends on GitHub, SWE-Bench isn't just write me a function for a Fibonacci sequence, is it?
No, not at all. Not even close. SWE-Bench involved taking real-world issues from popular open-source repositories, actual bugs, feature requests, and asking the AI to navigate the whole code base, find the problem, and then write a patch that actually passes all the tests.
So it's real engineering work.
It is.
Yeah.
And GPT 5.3 Codex hit a state-of-the-art 56.8% on this?
Which is a huge jump. But looking at the report, I was actually more interested in the Terminal Bench 2.0 score. That jumped from 64% to 77.3%.
Yeah.
That tells me this thing isn't just generating code, it's getting very comfortable using the command line.
That is the agentic shift we were just talking about. Terminal Bench measures how well the AI interacts with the operating system. Can it execute commands? Can it read the error log when a command fails and then, try a different flag? There's another one, OS-World Verified, where it scored 64.7%. This means the model is acting like a human developer sitting at a terminal. It executes, it debugs, it iterates.
So it's not just a typewriter spitting out code, it's a pair of hands on the keyboard.
Precisely. And it's doing this faster, too. The report says it runs about 25% faster than its predecessor.
Speed is so critical for agents. I mean, if you give an agent a task with 20 steps and every step takes 10 seconds of thinking, the whole workflow just becomes painful. So 25% faster makes it feel more fluid.
But if you want to talk about speed,
we have to talk about Spark.
Yes. GPT 5.3 Codex Spark dropped the same day, February 5th. The numbers here.
Yeah.
Honestly, they seemed like a typo at first. 1,000 tokens per second.
That's just insane. To put that in perspective for everyone, human reading speed is roughly, 5 to 10 tokens per second? 1,000 tokens is basically blinking the entire screen of text into existence instantly.
It changes the user interface completely.
Yeah.
You're not watching the cursor stream anymore. The information is just there. It changes the whole feel of pair programming from a conversation to, a thought extension.
It's a thought extension, yeah.
But the real deep dive insight here isn't just the speed. It's how they did it. This model is optimized specifically for Cerebra's hardware.
Okay, so this is the diversification play. OpenAI isn't just relying on NVIDIA GPUs anymore.
Precisely. Cerebra's builds these enormous wafer-scale engines designed for exactly this kind of ultra-low latency streaming. By optimizing a model for that architecture, OpenAI is signaling they're exploring hardware stacks that break away from the standard GPU clusters. It's a hedge against supply chain issues and a push for performance that, standard GPUs might not handle as efficiently.
Before we move off research, there was one other paper that caught my eye. It wasn't about code, it was about biology. They used GPT-5 series models to optimize cell-free protein synthesis.
This is fascinating because it proves transferability. The whole premise is that if a model can reason through the strict logic of Python or C++ Arrow, it can apply similar reasoning patterns to, say, biological physics.
Okay.
They used the model to optimize pathways for creating proteins without living cells, and it actually lowered their experimental costs.
It's all just rules and patterns at the end of the day, whether it's silicon or carbon.
That's the thesis. And it suggests these coding models might actually be our best science models, too.
So we have the brains. Let's talk about the tools. Segment B products. Because having a genius coder is useless if the interface is clunky. On February 2nd, they launched the Cortex app for macOS.
This is a huge workflow shift. Until now, if you used ChatGPT for coding, you were probably copy-pasting code from a browser window into VS Code. It was disjointed.
Right.
The Codex app is a native desktop command center.
Command Center implies it's doing more than just chatting.
It allows for parallelism. You can have isolated work trees. You can assign an agent to run a background task like refactor this entire module and let it run autonomously for up to 30 minutes while you work on something else in a different tab.
That sounds less like a chatbot and more like managing a team of junior developers.
Yeah.
You delegate, they execute, you review.
That is exactly the metaphor they are aiming for. It moves the human from being the writer to the orchestrator. And this scales up to the enterprise level with the other big launch, Frontier.
Frontier. This is the platform aimed at the big players, Uber, Intuit, that sort of thing.
Right. Frontier is designed to deploy AI coworkers. Note the language again. Not tools, but coworkers. These are agents integrated directly into your CRM, your data warehouse, your internal Slack.
There was a statistic from an investment firm using Frontier that, frankly, scared me a little.
Yeah.
They claimed it freed up 90% of their sales staff's time.
90%. They're offloading all the administrative grunt work, updating leads, scheduling, data entry to Frontier agents. Ideally, this frees up the humans to do high-value relationship building. But practically, anytime you hear 90% efficiency gain, you have to wonder.
You have to wonder if companies will keep the same number of staff or just run with a much leaner team.
It's the elephant in the room.
Yeah. But speaking of revenue, while enterprises are buying Frontier, regular users are about to see a change. On February 9th, OpenAI officially started testing ads.
The inevitability finally arrived. It's currently for logged-in users in the US on the free and go tiers. If you pay for Plus, Pro, or Enterprise, you're still ad-free.
And they've been pretty emphatic that advertisers don't influence the answers, right?
Correct. The ads are clearly labeled, they appear separately, but we have to look at why this is happening now. We have reports, financial projections mentioned in our sources, that OpenAI is facing a potential $14 billion loss in 2026.
$14 billion. That is an astronomical burn rate.
Training GPT-5.3, running those Cerebras clusters, maintaining the data centers. It is the most expensive computing project in human history. They can't sustain that on subscriptions alone. They need the high-margin revenue that comes from an ads business to offset the free tier costs.
So the ads are essentially subsidizing the compute for the free users. That makes sense. One last product note, they tweak the thinking time again.
Yes, for GPT 5.2, they restored the extended thinking time setting on February 4th. Apparently, they had quietly dialed it back in January, likely to save on inference costs.
And users noticed.
Users noticed the drop in reasoning quality. It's a tug of war, right? Users want infinite reasoning. OpenAI wants to lower the electric bill. It's just interesting that the user base is sophisticated enough to feel that difference.
It shows that for complex tasks, people are willing to wait. They value the chain of thought more than just getting instant answers. Okay, let's move to the hardware that powers all this thinking. Segment C, chips and infrastructure. We mentioned Cerebras, but there's a Microsoft story here too. Satya Nadella confirmed something interesting about their chip strategy.
This was a bit of a twist. Usually we think of Microsoft giving chips to OpenAI, but Nadella confirmed that Microsoft will be leveraging OpenAI's custom chip technology for their own internal R&D.
So OpenAI is becoming a hardware IP provider.
It seems so. It indicates the partnership is deepening technically, even while regulators are watching them like hawks. Microsoft isn't just a bank for OpenAI, they're becoming technologically codependent on the actual silicon designs.
And on the consumer hardware front, We got some bad news for anyone waiting for the iPhone of AI.
The Joni Ive project, yeah.
Oh.
Legal filings dropped this week confirming the device is delayed until February 2027. And they've abandoned the IO brand name.
2027. That is a long time in AI years. That's like a decade away.
It is. It's a reality check. Building physical hardware is infinitely harder than shipping code. It seems they're deciding to focus on the agent's Frontier and Codex rather than rushing some gadget to market.
Probably wise, considering some of the AI pin disasters of the past. Okay, segment D, safety and governance. If we're giving these agents terminal access and the ability to write code, safety becomes the primary concern. And we saw a pretty scary rating drop this week.
We did. GPT-5.3-Codex received a high risk rating for cybersecurity capability under their preparedness framework. This is the first time a model has hit that high rating.
High risk. Break that down for me. Does that mean it can hack my bank account?
It means it's exceptionally good at finding and exploiting vulnerabilities. In the evaluations, it scored 77.6% on cybersecurity capture the flag challenges. These are contests designed for elite human hackers to test their skills.
So we've built a digital master thief.
Or a master security guard. It's dual use. The same capability that lets it find a vulnerability to exploit it also lets it find that vulnerability to patch it.
Ah, okay.
That's why OpenAI launched the Trusted Access for Cyber program. They aren't giving this capability to just anyone with a free account. It is gated. It's for vetted defenders.
But knowing the capability exists makes the next piece of news even heavier. On February 9th, the U.S. Department of Defense officially deployed ChatGPT to GenAI.mil.
This is a massive deployment. We are talking about access for 3 million personnel.
That is not a pilot program. That is infrastructure.
Exactly. It signals the normalization of AI in the military. Now, this isn't for weapon systems. It's for administrative, logistical, and analysis work. But it brings that high cyber risk rating into sharp focus. If the military is using this infrastructure, securing it becomes a matter of national security.
And speaking of nations, OpenAI is seemingly trying to get ahead of the regulators with something called OpenAI for countries.
Yes, they launched a pilot in Estonia. It's all about building sovereign AI infrastructure.
What does that mean exactly?
It means giving countries control over how their data is used and how the models align with their local laws and values. They also updated their model spec to include under 18 principles. They're trying to set the rules for how AI interacts with minors and governments before, the EU or the US Congress forces clumsy legislation on them.
Smart strategy. Regulate yourself before someone else does it for you. Finally, let's wrap up with segment E, the business. We talked about the $14 billion loss projection, but they are signing deals to plug that hole. And the big one is Snowflake.
This is arguably the most important news for the enterprise market. On February 2nd, a multi-year $200 million partnership.
For those who don't know, Snowflake is a data cloud company.
Yeah.
Why is this specific deal such a game changer?
Because data gravity is real, companies have petabytes of customer data sitting in Snowflake. They want to use AI on it, but they're terrified of moving that data out to OpenAI servers.
Right.
This deal embeds the models into Snowflake.
So the AI goes to the data, not the other way around.
Exactly. It solves the privacy headache. And for OpenAI, it instantly opens up a distribution channel to Snowflake's 12,600 corporate customers. It's a massive pipeline for revenue.
We also saw a strategic maneuver regarding Microsoft's ownership stake.
Right. Microsoft reduced its stake to below 49% on February 9th.
That feels like a magic number. Why 49%?
It is almost certainly an antitrust defense. If you own 50% or more, regulators view you as having control. By staying under 49%, Microsoft can argue they're just a partner, not the owner, which helps them dodge regulatory bullets while keeping the technology pipeline wide open.
And finally, we have to mention the Super Bowl. OpenAI bought a 60-second spot.
You can just build things.
Yeah.
That was the tagline. It cost about $14 million for that slot.
That is a lot of money for a company burning cash. What was the message?
It focused on codex and creativity, but the strategy is what really matters. Anthropic also ran ads. We are seeing a battle for mindshare. OpenAI is pivoting to mass market consumer branding. They want to be the Xerox or the Kleenex of AI, the name you say when you mean AI.
It's a long way from a nonprofit research lab.
It certainly is.
So to recap the week, We have the agentic shift with Codex and Frontier AI that works not just chats. We have the monetization reality with ads and the Snowflake deal.
Mhm.
And we have the safety reality check with the high cyber risk rating and that Pentagon deployment.
It's the week where the rubber met the road. We move from cool demos to how do we deploy this, how do we secure it, and how do we pay for it?
And that leads me to my final thought for you to take with you. We started this deep dive talking about GPT 5.3 Codex debugging its own training data. We are officially in the loop where AI facilitates the creation of better AI.
The recursive loop.
But at the same time, we're staring down a projected $14 billion loss. The race isn't just for intelligence anymore, it's for solvency. So the question is, are ads and military contracts the only way to pay for the path to AGI? And if so, how did that funding model shape the AGI we eventually get?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question.
Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you in the next deep dive.